everyone. I'm so excited to introduce you to this really special lady sitting next to me. A quick background, I was introduced to her through the Ophelia program. Anytime I have an opportunity to do a plug for them, I do. And she was a guest speaker for the girls at the high school one day. And everybody was very impacted by her story. And I'm so honored to get to learn about it myself today and share it with everyone. So I'm excited to introduce to you Chairperson Amanda Augustine. She's the chairperson of the Augustine Cahuilla Indian tribe here in the Valley. And tell us a little bit about what that role means exactly.
So being a chairperson is a big deal. There is your political side of it. So that means meeting with, the city, meeting with the state, meeting politicians, just kind of sponsoring for your tribe. The second kind of part of that is your family element. That's the tribal members. Mm-hmm. So everything that we do here, the businesses, all of that, we support our tribal members. So we pay for their education, healthcare. So all of that stuff goes into that program.
Right.
So it's kind of difficult maneuvering through everything. And then on the personal side, I have my own family.
Right.
So
you have 6 children.
Yes.
Yes. So that's a lot of management just in general, right?
Yes.
I bet you get a lot of practice for your job managing the kids too sometimes.
Yeah. It's like that, managing the business and the kids. It's
Sure.
kind of similar. You still have to have that mom role. Sometimes you have to have that mom voice.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
it's kind of parallel.
Yeah, sure. And how long have you held this role here?
So I've been tribal chair since 2016.
2016.
Yes.
And what has that experience been like? And did you have expectations around it when you stepped foot into it?
To be honest, stepping into it, I was scared to death and didn't want to do it. So I saw my mom do it and, just thought that I couldn't do that. That's a lot of work. And for one, I didn't want to do it by myself. My mom did it all by herself, and that's something that I didn't want to do.
Right.
And I didn't want to drive myself crazy doing it by myself. So, we've gone from 1 council member to 3. So,
and it's all of your family though.
Yes.
Right. So everybody is involved in the day-to-day process.
Yes. So we have my sister.
Mm-hmm.
She's a council member and she oversees the farm. So she kind of does everything that you can imagine for the farm.
Right.
But then she also has her council duties. And then we have my brother, he's the treasurer.
Okay.
So he does everything for the casino's finance, the tribe's finance, other businesses' finance. So he kind of oversees all of that, plus the tribal duties as well. So we all make decisions on new programs, new businesses. So we still have that portion to deal with.
Mm-hmm. So you said you were scared when you... was this something that was asked of you, or was it you're next in line to do this?
I would say it was a little bit of both.
Okay.
I know that my brother was still in school. My sister, she kind of told us I don't really want to do that. And then so my cousins have they weren't out here, so it was kind of like the most, so you go and do it. And I was just like, well, I don't want to put anybody else under that type of pressure, so I did it.
You stepped into it.
Yes.
And has it been an experience that you are glad that you did that, or has the challenges been a little bit greater than you anticipated?
I think for me, I grew stronger as a person.
Mm-hmm.
I grew stronger knowing that I can kind of achieve stuff on my own. But then that kind of turned into kind of like an overachiever. So as I was doing this, running the tribe, as I was raising my kids, I also went to school and now I have 2 masters. So I kind of push myself. So I kind of pushed myself a little too hard. So right now it's kind of like, okay, now it's time to kind of relax, get the job done.
Right.
But I did learn a lot about myself. I've learned that, I do have anxiety. I do have depression sometimes and have those low moments.
Right.
So it's like this constant, like, you have to keep moving. And it's kind of like me fighting against myself, telling myself it's okay to just be and do what you have here now.
Right.
So that's kind of what I struggled with. Before this, I kind of struggled with, like, you're never going to do anything. You're never going to amount to anything. So it's kind of went from one end to the next.
Right.
And so now I'm just trying to find my middle.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's very interesting because you found yourself in a position where your whole life changes, and you could have decided to not take that on, and your life would be very different. So with the example to your children or just your tribe in general, because although you have your children, your tribe is also looking up to you as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think my life would have been a lot different because I was going to school originally for psychology. I wanted to be a marriage counselor.
Oh, wow.
So it would have been totally different from what I do now.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So you have, the tribe is small.
Yes.
And I believe, is it 19 members now?
Hopefully any day now we'll be hearing that our 20th member is born. So we're waiting on
congratulations.
that.
Congratulations.
Yes.
And yet you all work very hard to have a very large impact. Like you mentioned this farm earlier.
Yes.
And I know that this was something that your mother sort of dreamt about and started, and you have pushed through. And I've lived here for 25 years, and I was not aware of this farm. I think people should really have an understanding of what is happening out here outside of the casino.
Yeah, the farm was the next level. So my mom really wanted to build on sovereignty. So having sovereignty of our energy and power. So the farm, or the solar farm, solar field, that's what we call it. It powers the casino.
Right.
So the next step for her was to be sovereign in our food. We wanted to grow our own food, provide it to our members, and then also with that help the community around us.
Right.
So with the organic farm, I had no idea what I was doing. I was just trying to get it built, get it done. We had consultants. The farm is what it is now because of my sister Ronnie. She's worked really hard with getting, CCOF certified. She's USDA certified. She's also done GAP. So she put a lot of work into learning all of that stuff.
Right.
So she likes to cook, and she's like the chef of the family. So that was more of her interest.
Her passion.
Yeah. Mine's no.
Yeah.
She'll talk about, what's growing or what she has to do. And I'm like, that's nice. But she's done a really great job.
And what's the name of the farm?
Tamalpok Farm.
Tamalpok Farm.
So it means from the earth.
Right. And it's 50 plus acres.
Yes.
Right.
So she has her row crops. She has her date farm. And then she just added 2 more parcels to that. So she's adding more dates and more row crops.
Okay. And these are accessible to the public? There's a store or a way to purchase them?
There's a market. Yeah.
Okay.
So everything comes right out of the fields. It goes into the hydro cooler to cool everything down. And then it goes right into the back of the market. Mm-hmm. And then they start pulling things out and putting it into the market for everyone to shop and buy. And then she just received a grant where she's going to be getting a walk-in cooler.
Oh, wow.
So they should be starting on that pretty soon.
Oh, that's so cool. And it's all about sustainable, very much being good to the earth, right? And doing it all in this, because it's the desert here.
Yes.
So you guys have made a lot of adjustments on how to be able to grow effectively. So that knowledge that your sister has, that's a huge deal.
Yeah.
Huge deal. You have to do it right.
So whenever we start talking about the farm stuff, that's not my area. So she could tell you all about how they leached the farm and leached the salt out of and then got the level. Like she knows all of that.
Yeah,
I don't. So I'm just like, we did a lot to prepare.
We did a lot. We got it going. It's working. Yes. Yeah, fantastic. So earlier I mentioned, I about Ophelia.
Yes.
And you coming in that day, and the topic was being brave. Mm-hmm. And how did you feel? How did you decide to say yes to that? Number one, and how did you decide what you were going to help those girls understand?
I just kind of think about my own path and how, I did have my ups and downs. So I want it to, even if, somebody's not in a similar situation as me, I want it to actually provide some advice mm-hmm. or guidance or just for someone to hear my story and say, hey, I have something similar to that. So I thought that would be like the perfect way just to talk to those girls and not to like just random people. Like these are the people that I could actually affect and help and maybe change their path. And so that's kind of why I wanted to do that. And we used to go to the Ophelia luncheons.
Oh, really?
And so listening to those girls' stories mm-hmm. and how they like push through, and I was always in awe of them. Some of them with 4.9, and I'm just
and
like,
they're
what?
Involved in all these clubs.
Yes.
And they're going. It's really interesting, and a couple parts that I love about it. So you're right. Like it is the audience for a story of overcoming mm-hmm. obstacles and doing those things.
Yes.
And I didn't have that when I was their age.
No.
Right. So like, I think about that all the time and I'll tell them during the sessions, like this is like a gift to have these conversations now, to understand that we control our path and we are going to have highs and lows.
Yes.
And I also think it's an important thing for adult women like ourselves, because you had a moment, you weren't a child in mm-hmm. 2016, you were an adult, like, yes. and you had to overcome that self-talk of, it's too hard for me. It's too hard.
Yeah, and then I think, a lot of times, well, nowadays, people see these perfect images on social media,
right,
and don't really understand how somebody got to where they got. Nobody really gets to see the behind the scenes, right. the struggles that you had.
Right.
Like it hasn't always been great. Mm-hmm. But you kind of pushed through and made it. And most of the people who stand tall and confident is because they probably went through a lot to get there.
Yeah, they fell down a few times.
Yeah.
And that confidence comes from being able to stand back up.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's interesting because Christine and I were talking about that very thing. Like sometimes you just feel like you're not doing the right things and yes. it's not going to work out. And then you make it through that day.
Yes.
And that's what's so important about sharing those struggles, because people have an idea of what it's like to be you.
Yes.
And and the reality of that is so different. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So your mom, she was a big part of this tribe for many years.
Yes.
What was it like following in her footsteps?
I think for me, I just kind of knew that I would never fill those shoes. For me, I'm totally different, and I think I take a different approach to things. So I just tried to keep her in mind when I made my decisions or when I did things. But it was okay for me to do them my way. So
that's so correct, right? That's yes. so true. And I think when people step into a really big role, when somebody had it for so long, they try to do it that way.
The same way.
And you are a different person.
Yes.
And you have different things to contribute. That's yes. really, really, really a big deal. That's awesome.
But it's also scary because then you're second guessing yourself all the time. And then for me at that time, I was still young, and all of these people that I kind of oversee are older than me. So it was like that challenge too. So I was kind of like trying to figure everything out and tiptoeing around until I've kind of took my time to learn what I needed to learn.
Right.
And then I just didn't want to come in and be like, you do this, you do that.
Right.
It was more of me trying to find and understand things. So I asked a lot of questions. Why do you do that? Why is this? Why is that?
Right.
So, you know, I may have gotten on some people's nerves, but I had to do that, and I had to process that information that way. That was how I did things to learn what was going on. And then that's when I was like, okay, we're going to change this. We're going to change that. But yeah, it was a good, you know, year or two of just
easing
learning.
into it.
Yeah.
Learning. Yeah. It's a very big role.
Yes.
And so with your tribe, the almost 20 members of you, it would, one might assume it's very easy to keep that connection, very easy to keep that history amongst you. Is it? Or do you find it to be a little difficult?
So I love my brother and sister, but they get on my nerves too. We're all close. We're very close. We do have, you know, birthday parties and stuff together, but we do get on each other's nerves too. We're family.
Sure.
So, you know, there's those times where, you know, we isolate ourselves for a little bit because we just can't take anymore.
Right.
But we come back together, and that's the important thing.
Yeah, definitely. Well, this is just amazing. I didn't know that it was here, and I know that it's probably gorgeous. I saw it online, of course. Can people come and walk the farm and see what's done here?
We have tours.
Okay.
We do tours for schools. We do tours for groups. We also do private events where we do farm-to-table meals.
Wow. Okay.
So there are certain paths that you go. We just don't allow people into the row crops.
Sure.
But we do have areas where they can actually see and they can be explained like what's going on over there. We have a corridor where it actually has like this little, I can't remember what they're called, but there's grapevines all over them.
Oh.
And then there's flowers, so that's like the pollination corridor.
Oh, wow.
So you can also see the section next to that. I believe she's planning for her to do her herbs there. And then the rest on the other side would be the row crops. So you can go through that and see both sides.
Interesting. Very cool. And what's next for you and the goals around the tribe?
Right now, I am working on infrastructure.
Okay.
So our solar field is about 10 years old. So we're planning on upgrading, turning that into a microgrid with battery storage.
Okay.
We're also thinking of a wastewater treatment facility for the reservation. And then there are a couple of projects that we have that are different entities that are coming, that are possibly coming. We're just going through the planning phase.
Sure.
We did just have our Augustine police department.
Oh,
so
wow.
Now we have our police department. We're also working on the designs for our police station. So
awesome! Like really becoming self-sufficient in all ways. That's the ultimate goal, right? That's awesome. Okay. So, best advice you've ever been given?
I think there's a lot that I use. Some of them from my grandmother, some of them from my mother, and one from my husband. One is my grandmother used to say, she reads books, not minds. And my mother used to say, closed mouths don't get fed. And my husband said that I can always ask for help. So Yeah, I have a problem with asking for help.
Yes, you are not alone in that. You are not, when you said that, I'm like, man, my fiance says things like that to me all the time.
I'm here. I can help you.
Right. So I mentioned earlier too, we started this because we've just met so many amazing women with amazing stories, and we found that the thread that ties them all together is their willingness to do the hard thing. So what would you say to somebody who is maybe watching this and they're just not sure they can do the hard thing? What would be your advice to them?
My advice would be one step at a time. Like they say, Rome wasn't built in a day.
Right.
And that's kind of how I live my life, with just doing one thing, developing my list, taking the steps to just take off of that list, and that's how you get through the day, and that's how you start moving to what you want. In my mind, there's chaos. So I need to have, a list of stuff to do. This is what I have to get done. And I have that reminder. It's on my phone, on my computer. I have a whiteboard. It just reminds me, these are the things that we need to be focused. We need to get these things done. So I would say, take your time, write that list out, and then just start knocking that list down.
Right. Sometimes we look at the whole list and we think, I can't do that.
Yeah.
But when we just try to do it piece by piece, it's so much more doable.
Yes.
It doesn't drive us crazy.
Yes.
Thank you so much for your time today. We appreciate it so, so much. And it was a pleasure to meet you. Absolutely. Thank you. We'll see you all next time.
Bye.
Bye.